Good afternoon, everybody. The noonday gun has just gone off here in Cape Town, where our studio is based, and it signals the start of our weekly webinar. And welcome to today's weekly webinar, hosted regularly by REI on alternate Wednesdays and Thursdays. And thank you for joining us. And today is the second installment of our exciting new series, Property Authors and Their Personal Business and Real Estate Investment Journeys. Today and going forward over the next few months, we have a fantastic lineup of esteemed property professionals, investors, and business people, many of who become authors. And they'll be sharing their insights, experiences, and inspiration in the world of real estate, investment, and business. And our goal with this webinar series is to bring you closer to some of the industry's most influential property players and authors, allowing you the opportunity to learn from their triumphs and challenges. And in each session of this series, we will be joined by accomplished entrepreneurs, investors, property professionals, authors who've not only written extensively about real estate investment, but who have also walked the talk by successfully investing and building their own property portfolios and their businesses. And today's masterclass is brought to you, and it's hosted by Real Estate Investing in conjunction with Jaco Grobbelaar of Prosperity Enterprises, and also author of his book, which we'll share a little bit later, and also Grant Gavin, who's the owner of Remax Panache in Durban. I'll also share more detail a little bit later. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Neale Petersen. I'm the founder and content-in-chief of Real Estate Investor, South Africa's leading independent real estate digital magazine, content, and education platform for more than 16 years. So I'm honored to be your host and moderator today for today's masterclass. And at REI, we are really passionate about serving the South African and global real estate business community through our digital platform, rei.co.za, our monthly magazine, Real Estate Investor, our webinars, our live events, and educational material. So before we dive into today's masterclass, first some housekeeping. If you accidentally do log out by some chance, just remember, use the same link as before. And for registered attendees who could not attend today's live version of the webinar, you will receive a recording link of the webinar via email. Alternatively, you can access the replay, which is under Event Replay Recordings, under the Education tab on the rei.co.za website. Also, this is an interactive experience. So throughout the webinar, we encourage you to ask questions. And there's a Q&A box, which is on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Some people decide to use the chat box, but we say use the Q&A box, but either one is good. So we'll reserve some time at the end of this masterclass session, and we will address as many of your questions as possible. And so moving on to our topic today, unlocking success, key lessons from Jaco Grobbelaar and Grant Gavin. Jaco is a successful property investor, structuring specialist, and international speaker with more than 15 years of experience. He's a CEO and he's the founder of Prosperity Enterprises, a property investment, structuring, and education company. And he has successfully built a portfolio of profitable properties across various sectors. And Jaco will share his insights on wealth creation through property. It's great to have you on board, Jaco. I'm going to say hi to the audience.
There we go. Good afternoon, ladies and gents. It's such a privilege to be with you today, and really looking forward to our conversation today.
Wonderful. Great having you on board there, Jaco. And our second guest is Grant Gavin. He's a speaker, author, and coach and business owner of Remax Panache in Durban, KZN. Grant has authored his first book called Thoughtonomy, and it's a must read for all property professionals. And great to have you on our webinar, Grant.
Thank you, Neil, and hello, everybody. So nice to connect. I know we can't see everybody, but just nice to connect and hoping to add some good value to everybody on the seminar today.
Wonderful. Great having both of you. I'm looking forward to this afternoon. So let's jump into it straight away. And Jaco, let's start off with you. I mean, you wrote this book. So what inspired you to write this book called Prosperity Through Property?
So I have the privilege, Neil, to sit with property investors on a daily basis and to talk to them about their property plans, strategies, and what they are busy with. And we also assist our clients with their trust structuring to make sure that the right entities are in place and with their financials and tax returns. And by working with our clients, we realize that a lot of them are uncertain of how to approach this property investment journey. And it became impossible for me to one-on-one help every single one of my clients with their property journey to make wise decisions. And that is when I started writing Prosperity Through Property a couple of years ago to help my clients and also also people all over the country wants to invest in property, to make wise decisions and to invest in the right way in property.
Awesome, great. Thanks very much for that, Jaco, because it's quite a broad subject, and we're going to tuck into a lot more of the questions into that in terms of, you know, what is the best way to create financial freedom and that kind of stuff. But we'll get to that a little bit later. I just want to get on to our next guest, Grant. So Grant, you wrote a book, and now you're a property coach and you're in the property game, and you've gone in a different direction. And maybe tell us what inspired you to write about this book, Thoughtonomy, but more importantly, tell us a little bit about what is it? What is it all about?
Absolutely. But as Neale mentioned, so that's my brand, right? I'm with the Remax Group, and I came into a family business 16 years ago now. And amazingly, I've never sold a property. So here I am running the #1 single office for Remax in South Africa, and I've still not ever sold a property. And you can imagine when I started out 16 years ago, I came and started doing this with a massive insecurity and a massive fear of, can I really do this? How am I going to do this? I've never sold a property. Is anyone going to listen to me as the leader of this company? And of course, I bought into a business that my parents had started, and I was so worried that they were going to just see me as being handed this business. And the level of insecurity and self-doubt that I walked into this position 16 years ago is something that I've carried with me every single year. And when I look back at it now, it's unbelievable to see that not only was I so afraid to come in and lead a real estate office with this limiting belief and this limiting thought that because I've never sold a property, I can't do it. When I look back 16 years later, I see the successes that I've achieved. And I go, why did I doubt myself, you know, all those years? And at every single level of my success, I think I've doubted myself. And if I can go back and live my life again, I would love to live it more confidently, which I'm sure many people on the call are resonating with. So my journey has sort of metamorphosed from being this insecure broker owner or principal of a real estate company to actually developing my own coaching systems and sort of inventing my own role for myself as a real estate coach within a real estate business, which has now metamorphosed to coaching people from outside of my office, coaching salespeople from outside of the real estate industry, and ultimately led me to this book, which is Thoughtonomy. And it's the kind of the ending part of that journey for me, where I became quite frustrated sitting in front of people that I'm coaching, where I'm seeing mirrors of myself in them at all times, where I'm seeing talented people who are constantly doubting themselves. And I started learning, I became an NLP coach, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And the reason I followed that journey was because I wanted to understand why talented people were still hanging on to limiting and why their thought process of a long story is that for any level of success in your life, you have to take action, right? Everything comes down to activities. If I'm sitting with somebody, give me a number and I'll break your number, your goal down into the activities that we have to coach and hold you accountable to. So even when we got down to the activities, like I'll give you a blueprint of things that you need to do in order to be successful. The person in front of me wasn't able to take action for whatever reason. And what I've come to learn is that reason is the way they're thinking about the action. So I wanted to break down, what is it about our thoughts that holds us back? What are these limiting thoughts? What are these beliefs and these thinking systems that we learn as young kids, we condition, and our past conditioning, we hang on to, we've repeated it so many times in our mind that we now believe it to be true. I wanted a way as a coach to speak that language, to ask the right questions, to get somebody to go, whoa, hang on a second. So if I am responsible for all my successes and failures in my life, how might my thoughts be holding me back in achieving the outcomes that I want for my life? That's essentially the book. And I break that down. I explain why it is, how it is that we come to have this conditioning that governs our behavior. And then I give 4 tips to help you into the future.
Wonderful. Thanks, Grant. And it's, it's not often that we meet somebody who's in the property industry, who's, who runs a franchise, a successful franchise like you do, but who has not sold a property.
So as you know, I sold franchises, right, for Remax head office. When I came here to take over and run this franchise, I honestly believed that would hold me back. But when I look back, it actually hasn't.
Yeah, fantastic. No, but that's wonderful. Great introduction. Thanks there, Grant. So Jaco, let's delve a little bit deeper here. I mean, you in the whole game of building prosperity through real estate. And so what is the best way to create financial freedom? Everybody's trying to find that answer. Do you want to maybe share with us? And maybe, you've written this book, but maybe take us from the start. I think we're going to have a combination of both starter investors, those a little bit more seasoned investors. So maybe just share that story. What is the best way to create financial freedom for yourself?
Great. So for me, it is so important. Obviously, I mean, we all know the basic investment lessons of you need to have a diversified portfolio and you need to manage your risks and all of that. But I want to zoom in on property and speak specifically about property and the opportunities that there are around investing in property to create wealth and financial freedom for yourself. Now, there's 4 reasons for me why investing in property is so lucrative. And the first one is when you look at the consistent growth that property has shown over the last 50 years. It has very consistently grown over the last 50 years. And even from a rental perspective, rent has also escalated very consistently over the last 50 years. So it's a very reliable investment. If you look at the economic fundamentals as a second reason why investing in property is so lucrative, supply and demand. In 1994, we were sitting with just over 40 million people. Today, we are sitting with over 60 million people in South Africa, and each and every one of these people need a place to stay, need a place where they can sleep tonight. And then you've got the third reason, and that is the fact that you can buy property at a discount because there's a lot of subjectivity around property. There's a lot of emotional people buying and selling property. There's often an opportunity to buy property below market value. And then the last one, the fourth reason, is the fact that you can use leverage with property. That's probably the greatest reason for me in creating wealth with property, is the fact that you can use leverage. You can use the bank's money to create wealth for yourself. You can build an asset base for yourself without you having to put down all the money yourself. So to answer your question, Neale, is how do you create wealth? How do you create financial freedom for yourself? And for me, it's really about taking a consistent approach, preferably over decades, where you can consistently expand and build your property portfolio, making use or benefiting from the consistent growth that we have seen in property, benefiting from the economic fundamentals around property, using leverage, and making sure that you are buying properties below market value when you acquire them.
That's great, Jaco. So we're going to start unpacking that a little bit more because, and I think there's going to be a lot of questions around that. I certainly have a lot of questions around, investing in South Africa and that kind of stuff, which we'll get to a little bit later. But I think also great insights there. Grant, so you, in this book now, you've written about a number of, insights in the book that that property professionals can use, businessmen they can use, really to be a force to be reckoned with. And you use the whole thing about mindset and everything. So so maybe just share us some of those key thoughts that you've that you put across in that book.
So the fundamental basis is to look at every single one of us that's watching this seminar today and to go that if you fundamentally believe or you understand that you are the cause of every result in your life, then what I would say to you is, if you want to improve the outcomes in your life, if you want better results, if you want to earn more money, make more sales, buy more properties, you have to take more action, all right? We have to increase our activities. We have to adopt more positive habits. And then we will see our outputs in our life, or our outcomes in our life, improve. Conversely, if we take no action or we adopt bad habits, then we're going to go the other way. So if you want worse outcomes, if you want lower outcomes in your life, then just stop doing whatever you're doing now, right? So as a human being, you are responsible for all the results in your life. So then we look at a situation like, say, for example, you want to go and lose 5 kilograms or 10 kilograms at the beginning of January every year. You're going to go to an expert, a weight or a dietitian, and they're going to give you a blueprint for success. It's called a diet. I'm going to say to you, Grant, if you want to lose 10 kilos, here's the diet, here's the eating plan that you're going to want to stick to. And if you stick to this, I can pretty much guarantee you that you're going to lose weight over a period of time, all right? If you wanted to go to the gym and bulk up, you'd go to a personal trainer. He'd do exactly the same thing. He'd give you an exercise plan. You stick with it long enough, I guarantee you results. If you go to Jaco and you say, I want to go and build my property portfolio, he's going to give you a blueprint on how to do it. If you come to me as a sales coach or a real estate coach, you say, I want to earn more money, I'm going to go, here's my blueprint, here's the activities, go and do it. And if you do it over a long enough period of time, you will achieve success. But what do most of us do, right? We get the eating plan and we see the rolled oats for breakfast, and we go, no, I don't like rolled oats. So I'll scratch that out and I'll replace it with something. Or I don't eat broccoli. Or no, I don't want to do this. So we modify it so we're comfortable with the plan, right? If you go to the personal trainer, you might skip leg days. I don't like doing calves. I'm not going to do that. You start modifying the plan or the blueprint that they give you to reflect what's comfortable for you. You might go to Jaco, and one of the things Jaco says to you is, you want to find properties, you've got to do X, Y, and Z, and you might look at it and go, that doesn't make me feel good. I'm not going to do that, so I'll just do only the things I want to. And likewise, I might give you a blueprint and say, if you want to increase your sales by 3 times, you've got to make more phone calls, and you might go, I don't like making phone calls, so you won't do that part of the plan. And then we wonder why we don't get the results. So we've got to look at our behavior. You've got to look at your behavior and go, why do you do what you do when you know what you know? So what do I mean by that? Why do you do what you do when you know there's a better way, when you know there's another way that can guarantee you success? Why would I give you a blueprint for success and you go and do something completely different? Okay. And the answer is, most of us don't know why we do what we do, because most of our behavior is unconscious. So quite often we're doing things and we're not even aware of it. Most of our behavior is unconscious. So you have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind. Your conscious mind is what I like to call the goal setter. So if I said to anyone in the seminar today, how many of you want to earn 3 times more income next year? You don't want to put your hands up straight away, because your conscious mind is your logical, rational decision maker. It's your goal setter. Yes, I want to earn 10 million next year. But then your coach comes along and says, right, if you want to earn 10 million next year, we've got to increase your productivity 3 times, 4 times. Here's your blueprint. Here's all the activities. I'm going to stretch you and I'm going to make you uncomfortable, and you're going to have to do things that you've never done before. That's when your unconscious mind kicks in and goes, whoa, okay. Your unconscious mind is the goal getter, because your unconscious mind is the home of your behaviors, your emotions, your perceptions, your morals, and your values. And if it doesn't agree, if you're doing something that is uncomfortable, this is where your unconscious mind takes control. So it's quite often that we do things that we're not even aware of, right? Or we're not doing activities and we're not even aware why. So we have to understand that our behavior is controlled mainly by the unconscious mind. And if we had to define behavior, your behavior comes from your past conditioning and your emotions. I know there's many guys on this seminar going, oh, here we go. There's a talking about emotions, right? But we've got to talk about it. Like, think about this. If you break up with your girlfriend or your wife, or you have a massive argument at home with your partner, when you get to work that morning, how productive are you? You're feeling that anger or that sadness or the hurt. The emotion, when your emotion's low, you're not productive. But if you're in love for the first time, with a box of wine on Saturday, we just won the World Cup, you're flying into the office on Monday morning. Your emotions are lifting you, right? So emotions have a big impact on our behavior. That's one thing. That's why, as a coach, I know if somebody's dipping in productivity, have to find out what's going on in their personal life as well, because emotion plays a big part. But the bigger part is your past conditioning. So your behavior is defined by your past conditioning plus your emotions. Past conditioning, it's the way you think, right? It's traumatic experience, past experiences. Right? A quick example on that, and the book goes into more detail on conditioning, but a quick example on that is, Grant, I've made a cold call once before, and I just got moaned at like you can't believe by a very angry person who threatened me that if I ever phone him again, that past experience of making a cold call might prevent you from making cold calls in the future. But conditioning is powerful because a lot of it starts from a very, very young age. Between the ages of 0 to 7, all human beings are literally just downloading. So a lot of it goes back to how you were raised, who you were raised by, who was around you at that time. And young kids at that age, we're just downloading everything that we see. So the people around us and the way they think, the way they were raised influences the way we think. And as we get older, we just keep repeating all of these thoughts and beliefs until we believe them to be our own. So I'll give you another quick example. I was coaching a lady once, and I needed her to invest in herself in marketing. So she needs to put money into her business. But she grew up in a very, very poor environment. And she grew up in an environment of scarcity. So for her, having money in the bank was so important. She had money in the bank, but she wasn't prepared to spend it on her business. And as all of you know, as entrepreneurs and business owners and salespeople, you need to invest in your business to help it grow in terms of personal branding, marketing, generating leads. But her past conditioning of when she was young and growing up in an environment of scarcity was preventing her from taking money out of her bank account and investing it in her business. And she didn't understand why. That's an example of conditioning can impact your behaviors. So that's the basis upon which I wrote the book, was to make people realize that it's your behavior in terms of the activities that you do that's going to lead to success or different levels of success. We need to understand the definition and what defines your behavior.
Excellent. And, you know, we're going to unpack this a little bit more now. And I think I also put myself out to the audience there. If you've got questions, please put questions in the Q&A box. It's very intriguing there, Grant. And I think we're going to, unpack this whole thing about being the cause of all of our results, because a lot of people don't say, well, when I make a mistake, I was not the cause. When I did it well, then I was the cause. But we can unpack that. And I think you guys are working really well in tandem over here. We've got Jaco, and I'll give you a chance to respond on that, Grant, just now. I just want to go over to Jaco quickly, because we're all in this sort of property game, and it's also one of the success models. So Jaco, if we look at the South African market at the moment, we're going through a lot of challenges, and it's very easy to be negative if you consume a lot of the media, isn't it? So a lot of people question, does it make sense to invest in property in South Africa now? We got load shedding, we got corruption, we got governments that are not delivering in municipalities and all that kind of stuff. So we can easily say, no, it's bad, and all that kind of stuff. So what are your thoughts around that?
I think something that's very important to keep in mind is that all of the sentiment that is currently going, or that there currently is in South Africa, is worked into the prices of our assets as well. So we are finding ourselves in a situation where, unfortunately, a lot of people, like you said, Neale, are very negative. And it's very often because they are only looking, like you said, they are consuming media, and they are only looking at the problems or the challenges that we are finding ourselves with in South Africa. But actually, we are sitting in one of the time frames with the greatest opportunity in front of us. Load shedding is presenting tremendous opportunity. Poor service delivery is presenting tremendous opportunity. Corruption in the country is presenting tremendous opportunity. So we are actually sitting with a lot of opportunity right in front of our noses. The challenge, however, is that so few people are actually looking for the opportunity, because they are focusing on everything that's going wrong, everything that is not right in the country. So I want to start by saying that we are actually sitting with tremendous opportunity, tremendous opportunity right here in our country. The grass is not always greener on the other side. So in South Africa, when I get asked, or when I sit with a client or a prospective client and they ask me, is it a good time now to invest in property? I would say absolutely, because you want to, like Warren Buffett would say, be willing to swim upstream. You want to buy when other people are selling and sell when other people are buying. And we all know that now is not the time when most people are buying property and investing aggressively in South Africa. But what it does is it's making assets very cheap in South Africa currently. Property in South Africa is still some of the cheapest property in the world. And it is in a time like this that I want to acquire as many properties as possible and not sit on my hands and wait better days. So is it a good time to invest in South Africa? Does it still make sense to invest in South Africa? My answer is absolutely. There's a lot of silver linings. There's a lot of things that is shaping, maybe a little bit of my opinions, but load shedding is going to sort itself out with time. Whether it's the public sector or the private sector, people with solutions are going to come and sort this problem out. The issues in government are going to get sorted out over time. There's a lot of tendencies or a lot of trends that are moving towards that already. So we are sitting with great opportunities, and it's important to keep your eye on the positive things. Keep your eyes on the good things that are happening in the country. Otherwise, you might just miss one of the big opportunities in your life.
Great stuff, Jaco. And I think it's wonderful to actually have that kind of perspective. And I think, and you know, the fact that you got Grant over here, you know, just talking about, you know, being positive, being negative and all that kind of stuff, I think is so important. And rather to have an opportunistic mindset. And yes, there is. I mean, why don't you just turn it around? I mean, markets go up and down. We've seen this before. These challenges all around the world now. It's not a South African problem. It's an absolute global problem. And I mean, Grant, now you are the coach. You're the guy that helps somebody through these times. And plus, you're also running your own property business. And I'm sure a lot of what Jaco was saying rung true for you as well.
Yeah, I loved it.
So yes, so let's just get back to your original statement that you made about you are the cause of all your results, whether it's, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that and give us some more of your sort of your key points that you brought out in the book?
Absolutely. I just want to say, I love what Jaco said there. I ascribe to everything that he said there. I set my business for that this year as well. After running Remax Panache, I've had 3 of these market corrections, 3 of these periods where rates have gone up and volumes have come off. And there's a clear pattern on my sales graphs of this company where it escalates to 2 years, which I call the twin towers. So imagine bar graphs. I get 2 twin towers. And then there's a period of 5 years where it goes to a new high. You get 2 twin towers, 2 amazing years. We've just now completed our last 5-year cycle where 2022 was the second of my twin towers. I've had 2 incredible years, and now we've fallen off again. So beginning of this year, I said to all my agents, I said, do not label this year. Do not label this year as negative. Do not label this year as tough. The minute we label something as human beings, we attach to it negative emotions and past experiences. What I get them to look at is to look at the realism and the realistic side of, well, if the interest rates have gone up, the buyers are going to disappear. So we've got to work smarter with buyers. We've got to look for the buyers who are serious. We've got to get them pre-qualified. We've got to work our buyers harder. So this is now where I'm in control, right? So I'm not just going to say it's a bad market, right? But I want to understand the market. There will still be sales this year. It's still a good market. The banks are still lending money. There's still sellers who need to sell, and there's buyers who need to buy. But you've got to look at the different elements of our business and go, right, how am I in control? With my sellers, I need to make sure that I'm price counseling, and I'm hard on price counseling, because any seller who's trying to overprice or test a market in a market where the buyers are running away, they're going to sit on the market for a long time. So real estate professionals have to be really good at price motivation and price counseling right now. And that requires that you go and train yourself and you upskill on how you're going to communicate with your sellers. You'll get it done. There's resources available, but you need to be having conversations with your sellers every single week now, and feeding back the response from the market. You have to be a price counselor of note, because if you've got stock and it's overpriced, you're not going to be earning money as a real estate agent, and you're not helping your sellers either. So we've had to upskill, we've had to shift our activities to become better at price counseling. On the buyer side, we're now in a market where buyers are disappearing. It's become less affordable for them to buy, but there are still buyers. So we've got to get them the best deals. We've got to make sure we're setting them in front of a mortgage originator sooner rather than later. We get them pre-approved, we get them pre-qualified, and we build the loyalty with the serious buyers in the market. And what's happened is our agents have focused on these activities. And Neale, I'm hearing out there that real estate companies in our market are dead quiet. We did 120 million in sales last month. There are still sales happening, but it's about how you, as the real estate professional, sharpen your pencils, increase your activities, do the activities that maybe previously you've been a bit uncomfortable doing or afraid to do. You've got to stretch yourself a little bit and start doing the things that you have to do. So it goes back to that whole thing. Why do you do what you do when you know what you know? We've got to shift ourselves, we've got to stretch ourselves, and we've got to get a little bit uncomfortable, but you're always in control. And that's what I mean by being a cause. If you just sit back and go, oh, the market, you're now on the effect side. So the effect side is kind of like being a victim and going, oh, well, the market's so bad, I'm going to have a bad year this year. Now, if you're on the effect side of life and you're waiting for the market to change before you're successful again, you're going to wait a long time. You're going to wait a long time, as opposed to going, well, I'm at cause of everything. There are still sales happening. We get to the end of this year, I guarantee you, if I do a deeds office search of the Durban North, La Lucia, and Umhlanga market, there will be upwards of 4.5 billion rand of real estate. How do I know? Because it's consistent most years. And if there's 4.5 billion rand of real estate that's going to happen this year, whether I'm an agent or not, how much of it do I want? And if I want a significant portion, or if I have to increase my income in a market like this, then I've just got to shift my activities. And I've got to start doing things that maybe last year I was a little uncomfortable when the market was easier. So that's what I mean by always a cause. You've got to always remain at cause and understand that it's your activities that impact the outcomes that you have in your life and in your business. Does that help?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I think that's some really, really great insights there. And I think, so we're talking to our two property authors, Grant Gavin, who's just come out with a book called Thoughtonomy. And we've got Jaco Grobbelaar, who has a book called Prosperity Through Property as well. And we've got a link at the bottom. So those of you interested in purchasing the book, you just click on the link on the bottom of the page. Just ask my colleague Alex just to drop the link in there again. Once again, I'll reach out to you, the audience. If you've got any questions, please drop it in the Q&A box. Don't be shy. This is an opportunity to get some guidance from our two very inspirational speakers and, and our property professionals as well. So Jaco, let's just go a little bit to your side. In your book, you speak about different property investment strategies and approaches. Do you want to share some of those strategies and approaches with our audience now?
Sure. So the very first thing that you need to do when you want to start investing in properties, you need to ask yourself, what strategy or approach am I going to take? So in property, you've got two returns. If you think about the return of a property investment, you basically have two returns. On the one side, you've got your capital appreciation. That is the value that property is appreciating by every single year. And on the other side, you've got what we call your net rental yield. That is your rental income less all your expenses as a percentage of your purchase price or the market value of the property. So you've got your capital appreciation, your net rental yield. And if you add those two together, you get your total return of your property. Now, some people focus more on the capital appreciation side. Other people focus more on the net rental yield or the cash flow side. Now, a typical capital appreciation property would be, for example, somebody that buys a property on the Atlantic seaboard or in Umhlanga or in a place like that, because your main focus is going to be on the value that that property is going to increase by. Whereas somebody that wants to follow a cash flow strategy might, for example, do a multi-let or a student accommodation, or maybe invest in an area that is a little bit more affordable and where your rental yields are higher. So the first thing that you need to decide is, on the spectrum of capital growth and cash flow, where am I going to play? And that will then determine how comfortable you are with shortfalls or surpluses in your property portfolio, because you could have one property investor that's comfortable with a shortfall because of the capital appreciation that is going to take place with that property, where somebody else follows an approach where they say, listen, I don't want to focus on the capital appreciation of this property. This property must generate positive cash flow for me from day one. So what are some of those approaches? What are the different approaches that you can take when it comes to property investment? The first one is the most obvious one for me, and that is to buy a home to live in. A lot of people, depending on where you are at, if you are starting out, why rent if you can own? Rather own that property in one of your companies and rent it from your company like any other tenant would rent, and let that be an investment property for you. Then you've got your traditional buy to let, where you are buying a property long term to let it out. That could be single dwelling or multi-dwelling approaches. A multi-dwelling approach could be, for example, where you have a property with a cottage at the back and maybe some additional units on the earth that you can rent out. So you have, we call it a multi-let, or you've got multiple tenants that are renting from you. Then you've got obviously your buy to flip. Those are people that are buying properties, fixing them up, for example, selling them at a profit and generating profits or cash flow in that way. You've got people that are doing short-term rentals, where they are buying properties and they are, for example, renting it out short-term, like with an Airbnb. You've got let-to-let strategies. A lot of people can actually not afford or don't want to own property, but what they do is they go and rent property and then they rent it out again as a short-term rental or as a long-term rental. Maybe as a student house, you rent the house as one house, but you rent it out to multiple students. So there's a lot of let-to-let strategies that you can also follow. So those are a couple of the approaches that a person can look at. So I want to reiterate again how important it is, before you start investing in property, to make sure, what is it that I want to achieve? Where do I want this thing to take me to? And what will be the approach that I follow that will get me to my destination that I want to reach?
Excellent. Thanks, Jaco. I think there's some great insight there, because a lot of people just become so fearful, of doing these kind of things. And I think there's some great insight, great advice there. And it almost like maneuvers over to Grant here, because Grant, I want to ask you the question. I mean, Jaco's given once again some really great insights there. And you mentioned this whole thing about mindset, and the book Thoughtonomy is all about the mindset and everything. And some people just, are so fearful. You mentioned the whole behavioral thing, past sort of conditioning and that kind of stuff. And so can you just elaborate? If somebody's sitting in a position here and they say, look, what Jaco says is great, he's given some fantastic options, and it's not what Jaco said that is wrong or right. It's that this individual is saying, well, they're getting held back. What advice do you have for somebody? What strategy can you give them to be able to say, I'm in a position, I'm stuck, my business is not going as the way, and it's easier said than done. How can I move forward? I'm in a position where business is moribund, it's stuck, it's not moving or going anywhere, and I need to push myself. I need to get myself to the next level.
Yeah.
What do you suggest?
Well, I think the first thing is to understand is that we all see the world through different filters, right? Every single one of us has had different past experiences. We've all been raised differently. Some of us might have even come from different countries. We've had different upbringings. We've got different morals, values. Our parents had different upbringings. So the way we are conditioned is all unique and individual. So when someone says everyone sees the world through different eyes, this is exactly why, right? So every time we experience something, we experience an event, our minds are programmed to filter out information. And the way we filter is we delete, we distort, and we generalize. Okay, that's what we do as human beings. Imagine if you typed in property investment into Google. Right? Google has an algorithm where it'll sift through millions and millions and millions of results, and it'll bring you down to sort of page 1 and page 2. And as human beings, we'll go and look at page 1 and page 2, right? Because we have to we have to filter out the millions and millions and millions of other results because we can't focus on everything. So Google presents to us what it thinks is we're looking for in terms of its algorithm. And we'll only look at pages.
ChatGPT. Or ChatGPT.
Now it's even easier. But our minds work the same way, right? So we're experiencing millions of bits per second in terms of our sensory information, but so we also have to filter that out. And so we delete, distort, and generalize. Right? And what I mean by delete, we'll delete stuff that we don't agree with. Okay. So like I know with my daughter, I'll say to her, my girl, you got to be in bed by 9 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock, she's still getting ready for bed. And then I lose my temper, or I lose my patience with her. Like, Leia, I said you need to be in bed at 9. She goes, no, you didn't. I said, I told you need to be in bed at 9 and sleeping. She said, no, you told me to start going to sleep at 9. So she takes what out and she just deletes what she doesn't agree with. If I'm speaking to somebody off a stage and I'm saying you're going to make phone calls and you go, no, I'm not making phone calls, you're going to delete that. You don't even consider it, right? Or we distort things. So we hear things and we just reframe it into how we want to believe it based on how we think and how we see the world. I don't know how many of you have ever listened to a song and you've gone to your mate and you've said, wow, that's the lyrics. Oh my gosh, that's one of the best songs I've ever heard. And your mate goes, what? That's a cuck song. No, I hate that song. But we all experience things differently. Of course, we generalize as well. All real estate agents are X. All guys are Y. All women are this. Right? So we do this. This is how we experience life. And how I delete, distort, and generalize is going to be very different to how you delete, distort, and generalize. So if I'm fearful of making a decision, or if I'm hanging on to a limiting belief, that is going to be preventing me from taking action and moving to the next stage. So Jaco's just mentioned so many amazing options there. And there might be people out there going, yes, I'd love to invest in property, but I'm just so scared because what if I invest and I lose money? Because maybe I've done that and I've lost money. So there might be some fear or some limiting belief that's holding you back. Let's flip it back to real estate and to coaching. So might be someone going, I want to earn more this year, but I just can't see it happening. Like it's market's so bad. What I ask you to do is to look around you for evidence. So I always say this to people, like right now in the market, if you're not making any sales and everybody around you in the marketplace is not making sales, then we have a problem. But if I say to you, look around, is there anybody like you in the real estate market who's making sales right now? And you say to me, yes, then I'm going to say to you, well, then there's evidence to suggest that the way you're thinking is maybe incorrect. So how might your thinking be holding you back? And then I'll ask you probably the most important question. What do you need to do that you don't want to do? I'm going to repeat that. What do you need to do that you don't want to do? So there will be something that you're not doing because you don't want to do it. So in a sales environment, I know what that comes down to. It's either marketing or branding, right? The two massive biggest pillars that I coach salespeople, not just in real estate. What are you doing with regards to marketing in terms of marketing to people that you know, working your network, working your database, communication systems? What do you need to do that you haven't done yet because you don't want to do it? Because I guarantee you there'll be something that you haven't done yet. If you're doing all of that, you'll be getting results. That's on the marketing side. On the branding side, I'm very big on personal branding, putting yourself out there, letting the world know who you are. What do you need to do that you don't want to do? And there's generally going to be a fear or a limiting belief behind those activities that's preventing you from doing it. In my experience, it's generally the fear of the opinion of others. We're always so worried about what people are going to say if we brand ourselves, or what are my friends going to say if I start communicating to them for business, or what is my network going to think of me? There's always a fear, there's always an underlying fear that you're hanging on to, or a limiting belief that is preventing you from doing the things that you need to do. So I go back to that blueprint. I say, if there's a blueprint for success in whatever area you want to improve in your life, there will be a blueprint. Look at that blueprint and ask yourself, what do I need to do that I don't want to do? And when you find that, you go to work on that, and you go to work on yourself, because all success starts from the inside.
Wonderful. I think that's such great insight there, Grant. And so I'm going to say, leave your cameras on. Let's have a little chit chat now. And so Jaco, if you can bring yourself back here, because we're in our sort of our last session over here. And once again, I'm asking the audience if you would like to ask questions. I know we had somebody put their hand up, but then their hand went down. If you want to allow us to talk and ask the question, we can do that too. But that's entirely up to you. Just have to stick up your hand, or alternatively, put it into the Q&A box over there. So Jaco, let's just talk. And once again, our two property authors is an opportunity to read their book. I mean, that's where I get a lot of my insights. Thoughtonomy by Grant Gavin, and obviously Property Through Prosperity, that's by Jaco Grobbelaar. Two very good books. So I encourage you to buy that. There's a link at the bottom of the page there. So Jaco, I mean, you've given just so many great ideas. I mean, in terms of property investment, and because people are kind of like stuck in all these different ways, and you just say, well, you need to understand the numbers. You need to hedge yourself against higher interest rates. What about property management? All these different things. So the question is now, based on what Grant has been talking about mindset and how we ended off on your last discussion, is how do you get people to break through there? Because you've given really fantastic advice. Have you had to deal with that?
So Grant spoke about the blueprint, and he kept on referring back to the blueprint and how important that blueprint is, because that is your recipe for success. That is your plan for success. But when it gets to that, it's important that, for example, as a property investor, if you want to be successful in property investment, you need to be able to speak the language of property. Now, we all know that property is a numbers game. It's about the numbers. It's not about how pretty the property looks like or about any of that. At the end of the day, as an investment, property is about the numbers, and the numbers need to make sense. But you need to be able to understand the numbers, and you need to be able, I always remember Robert Kiyosaki in his books would always speak about the importance of speaking the language of business, understanding the jargon. Now, what is the jargon about property investment? Words such as gross rental yield, net rental yield, shortfall, surplus, internal rate of return. Those are words that you need to understand and make your own, because when you look at property investment and when you look at your blueprint, you want to understand what this is all about. You want to understand the numbers, and you want to be able to determine, but is this a good investment or is it not? And then speaking about interest rates, and Neale, hedging yourself against interest rates, the importance around building up a cash reserve fund for yourself. It's something that I cannot place enough emphasis on, and it's something that I unfortunately had to learn the hard way myself as well, is when you are building up a property portfolio with multiple properties, make sure that you've got a cash reserve fund, an emergency fund in place. You cannot have a big property portfolio without cash. You are setting yourself up for big trouble. So when you are, especially when you are building a property portfolio with multiple properties in it, make sure that you've got a strong cash reserve fund. Even if you have to refinance to make that cash available, just make that cash available. You can park it in your access bond and you can leave it there, but have that cash reserve fund in place so that you've got access to cash when you need it.
Wonderful. I think that's some excellent advice there. Grant, I see there's a couple of questions for you here. The one is from Ulsa, and she says cold calling training. Who can help with that? And I think you mentioned it earlier, that probably people are not doing what they should be doing, kind of thing. So maybe you want to respond to Ulsa on that one?
Yeah, specifically on cold calling, I always say that's the last option. I always believe that I know, it's not what I believe, I know. Most agents get their stock from people that they know. It'll come from referrals, from past clients, from friends and families, and not just them selling their houses, it's referrals from those people who already know, like, and trust you. So your network, and not being afraid to tap into your network through a very, very well-structured database communication program, that's where your business comes from. So for me, cold calling is for the person who comes into my office and doesn't know anyone in town. Then you're forced. Then you have to go and start cold calling. But if you have to cold call, building rapport in that first 10 seconds of the conversation is the most important part. So there are scripts and strategies that I coach on. But for me, cold calling is actually a last resort when you don't have a network of people and a database of warm calls that you can make. That makes sense.
Okay, excellent, great. Okay, so we've got so Jaco, we've got some questions here for you too. And it's some people like to know, well, how many properties do you own? Because if you own one or two, you how can you be an investor? And it's a very private question, I would say, but you know, I'll leave that to you to respond to that. But also, you know, what strategy do you use and why? And so maybe do you want to just answer those two questions?
Sure. So over the last 15 years, we built up a substantial property portfolio for ourselves. I bought my first property when I was 21 years old. And I first started buying property just by myself. And then eventually I ran out of capacity and we started, you know, using my wife's affordability to buy more properties. And then from there, I started putting partnerships together or joint ventures together where I would buy with people. And we built quite a substantial property portfolio over the last 15 years with that. In the last 7 years with Prosperity Enterprise with our clients, we are fast on our way to about R1 billion of properties just in our client base of property investors investing in properties. So with regards to the strategy that I prefer to use, I've always taken a very long-term approach to property. I've always been very patient and very comfortable to give something time. So with most of my property investments, I've taken a long-term approach where there's a shortfall, but I've planned for that shortfall. I've made reserves available for that shortfall. I've made sure that I can subsidize that shortfall, but that I'm building up an asset base for myself. I always say somewhere along the line, my goals change, my financial goals change from how much money can I make this year to how much property can I acquire this year? How many assets can I put into my asset base? Because the bigger my asset base is, the more my net worth is going to be eventually, if I can sustain it. And that's why I spoke about the cash reserves and making sure that you've got sufficient cash reserves in place. So I'm comfortable with a long-term strategy. I'm comfortable with shortfalls, given that there's good prospects in this property to appreciate in value, and also for these properties to reach break even in a reasonable amount of time. That then being said, you also do need to take the cycles you need to keep the cycles in mind. We, for example, doing a webinar on the 20th of June, live webinar on property investment trends and analysis, where we specifically speak about what is happening in the market right now. And we all know that property growth in the last 8 years or 10 years hasn't been phenomenal. It hasn't been exceptional, but it's about taking that step back and seeing the bigger picture. That's why I love looking at 50-year data, to see the trends, to see how in different times property grew aggressively and at other times it grew very slowly, and building that into my strategy as a property investor as well.
No, wonderful. Thanks, Jaco. That's great insight. I mean, if you look at the Cape Town market, some of it has actually outperformed what's happened on a national basis. So if you look at Cape Town, there's a lot of immigration happening
Absolutely.
in Cape Town. And so that's driving prices up, and there's also a lot of activity, but there's also a shortage of property. But then, of course, you know, the buying cycle has dropped because of interest rate, and it's a normal thing to happen. But I think, first of all, Jaco, wonderful, great insights. And I think I encourage everybody to go attend, you know, Jaco's webinar. Where can they go on your website? Or can we put a link below the, you know, wherever your webinar is to come along? It's on your website, prosperity.co.za.
Prosperityenterprises.co.za, that's right.
Sorry, it's right behind you, and it says Prosperity Enterprises, so .co.za. And go to the webinars. Jaco also has live events as well. So in fact, it's also, you can click onto the link over there, the REI link. If you want to see any upcoming event, you can go there. And I encourage you to also get Jaco's book as well. But it's not the end, Jaco. Grant, over to you. I see we've got 2 questions there for you as well. Somebody has asked, why haven't you sold any properties yet on the first one?
I'm dying to answer it.
and the second one is, what advice do you give to a new agent who wants to make 2 million or more in gross commission per year? 2 great questions.
Yeah, awesome questions. Thank you for asking that. The quick answer for question number 1 is because I never wanted to. I don't want to sell real estate. That's not what I want to do in my life. And the business that I own has 65 real estate agents. So my role here is to build and run the business. And as I said, My role is to coach and train them so that they make more money. So as Neale will tell you, and Jaco, as a business owner, it's important that the people that are working in the business are more successful than me. Because if they're producing, then my business is in good hands. So if I had to try and sell properties and run a business of 65 agents, not possible. So my focus is on recruiting agents, running the business, managing costs, and then coaching and training and making sure that my agents are productive. And last year, the average agent in my office earned R1 million a year, which made us the most productive RE/MAX office in the country. So that's my focus. So I don't want to sell. It will take me away from that. Secondly, if you want to earn R2 million or more, you've got to list more sold mandates. You've got to get more stock. And what I would do if you were sitting with me is I'd break down the R2 million a year into using the average selling price in your area. For example, I know in my area, if an agent wants to earn R1 million gross comp, they got to pretty much sell 8 homes a year. That's where we are in our market. Your average home price in your area will determine what your target is. But then I break it down even more in terms of how many sold mandates do you have to be carrying every single month. And if you had to sell 1 sold mandate every month, I'd make sure you're carrying 2 because not every mandate sells. And then I break it down even more. I go, right now, what do you need to do to go and get 2 sold mandates every single month? You have to be sitting in front of 8 sellers a month, which is only 2 valuations a week. We're going to break that down. How are you going to get 2 valuations a week? What are the activities that you have to do? What are the calls, the emails, the WhatsApps? What is the strategy behind you not earning R2 million a year? What is the strategy behind you getting 2 valuations, sitting in front of 2 homeowners every single week, whatever that number might be? And that's how I would break it down.
Right, wonderful. So just a reminder, just for our audience over there, there is a link there for the webinar that is for Jaco's webinar. You can just click on that link over there. And then also please click on the link for Grant's book as well, Thoughtonomy. So Grant, I mean, surely as a coach as well, you also probably do events, you do training courses and that kind of stuff. Have you got anything planned going forward?
I don't have anything coming up at the moment. From the day that I released this book, I actually had I'll be honest and vulnerable here, I had quite a dip. I had to just take a bit of time off. I'm trying to run this business and do the coaching and speaking, but I'm starting to generate more events now. But I haven't got any webinar events lined up just yet. But I don't know if I'm allowed to give out my website.
Absolutely, of course you can. Yeah, not a problem.
No, it's thoughtonomybook.co.za. And any links will be put up there in the future.
Wonderful. We'll drop that in as well. The link is also on the website. We will make sure that the audience certainly gets that info. And I just want to tell the audience, Grant, you were sitting on the hospital bed yesterday. So, and thank you for coming. Or property for that matter, Jaco. Definitely wasn't an emergency kind of thing. So Jaco, I see we're coming to the end. There's a couple of questions that we can handle still. I'm just going to, the one is from Jaco, let me just see, I'm on the wrong question over here. Gavin Prinsloo. He said, Jaco, what are some of the strategies for buying properties undervalued? I'm going to give you a minute on that one, and then I'm going to ask at the end Grant to give his 2-3 minute wrap final, and then yourself thereafter, just so that we cover all our bases with the questions.
Great. So when you want to buy property below market value, you need to buy from a motivated seller. Now, what is a motivated seller? That's somebody that usually doesn't have a lot of time to sell and is in a hurry to sell. Now, there can be a lot of reasons why sellers are motivated. It might be because of financial distress, or that they are divorcing, or it might be a deceased estate and the beneficiaries just want to get the property sold out of the estate. It might be that people are immigrating. Some of the greatest deals that I've gotten in property investment are from people that have immigrated and they're trying to get rid of their properties in South Africa, or people that are upsizing and downsizing and they simply just have to get their properties sold. But the way that you find these motivated sellers, because that's the next question, is where do you find these motivated sellers? I always compare it to fishing. You need to put lines in the water. You need to view as many properties as possible and submit OTPs below market value and wait for one to accept it. So if you, for example, just like Grant said, you have to phone X number of people if you want to get so many successful It's going to be the same with offer to purchases. You're going to have to submit X number of offer to purchases to get one that is successful below market value, and to patiently put your lines in the water and wait for a bite.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Jaco. So we are now approaching the end. I'm going to ask our two guests, Grant and Jaco, just to give us the final wrap. And so, Grant, if you can give us your final wrap, maybe give somebody some inspiration, some thoughts, something they can take away and use today.
Yeah, look, I think everything. That's why I love that question. Why don't I sell? And the answer is simple, because I don't want to. I honestly believe that we have to find. Yeah, life. Seriously, life should be like this celebration of us all fulfilling our God-given talents and tapping into our fullest potential, wherever that may be. But instead, we seem to go through life with this constant struggle of doubting ourselves and wanting to achieve more, and we know we can do more, and then we get frustrated with ourselves, and we don't understand why. And that's why I think this book that I've written is such an eye opener. And the biggest bit of feedback I get from people is what Grant would you coach me is, Grant, thank you for asking the questions in this book that are actually making me think about how I think and how I'm holding myself back. And I think that's the first part of shifting out of a comfort zone, is realizing how might the way I'm thinking be holding me back. Because maybe if I just think about something a little differently, or if I realize that actually that thought of mine that money is the root of all evil, that came from my mom, and that came from her mom, which was a granddad. And that's what he told me. Or, using a simple example here, a big one for me now is children should be seen and not heard. I mean, how many times did we hear that growing up? You try and keep a kid quiet today. Very, very difficult. The world has changed fundamentally. So we can't hang on to all these preconditioned thoughts. It's that generational thinking that our mom told us and our dad told us, which they were told by their dad. We're hanging on to those thoughts and beliefs now in a world that has shifted dramatically. Like, sorry, women's place is not at home raising the family. Women are incredible in business. But you know how many women I coach who are struggling with the guilt of leaving their kids with an au pair? Why? Because their mom stayed at home and their granny stayed at home. And that's how we believe a woman's place should be. It's not. Women are amazing salespeople and incredible in business, but a lot of them carry guilt of not being at home with their children. The world's changed, right? We can't have single income families. We've got to be out there with dual income families. So let's just question some of the thinking that is maybe holding us back. Release it, become aware of it, and watch how you progress to a new stage of success in your life.
That's a wonderful way to end there, Grant Gavin. Thank you very much. He's the author of Thoughtonomy. He's also a business coach, author. And so if you want to reach out to him, first of all, buy his book. You just click on the link below for the Thoughtonomy book, or you can go to thoughttonomybook.co.za. He will be starting his webinars and that kind of thing. Don't disappear quite yet, Grant. I'm going to ask Jaco just to close as well. So Jaco, if you could just give us your final wrap, your final thoughts that somebody can take away with him.
Great. The reason why I made the title of my book Prosperity Through Property is because that is really the why. That is really the why people invest in property, is they want to create wealth, they want to create financial freedom. And I still really strongly believe that property is the best way for you to create wealth, generational wealth, and for you to create financial freedom for yourself. So that being said, it's important to invest in yourself. It's important to make sure that you read, that you develop yourself, that you learn as much as possible. Because just like with everything else, there are good investors and there are bad investors. And if you want to create wealth, if you want to create financial freedom through property, you're going to have to invest in yourself. You're going to have to read, you're going to have to develop yourself, and make sure that you've got the right structuring in place when you start building your property portfolio. Don't buy multiple properties in your own name. You're very quickly going to reach a ceiling where it's going to become very difficult for you to expand beyond that. And that is also something that we can help you with. When you reach the point where you say, I want to build a property portfolio, to put the right structures in place.
Wonderful. That's great advice there, Jaco. Thank you very much. Once again, gentlemen, Grant and Jaco Grobbelaar. He's the founder of Prosperity Enterprises. He's also the author of the book, Prosperity Through Property. And it's wonderful having you both on today. Can you believe it? We're just beyond 1 o'clock as well. It's really been insightful and inspiring, gentlemen. Thank you very much. And for the audience, I hope you gained valuable knowledge and advice from Grant and Neale and Jaco and myself, Neale. Well, I certainly did. That's what I wanted to say. That's what I mentioned my name. I got great, I was inspired and got great advice from you guys. So, so please, guys, sign up. Take action, as Grant said. You don't sit back and do nothing about this. Sign up for their courses. Go on their seminars. Go on their webinars. Read the book. Read the book. The one's called Thoughtonomy. How much does it cost you? It could change your life dramatically. Read Jaco's book. It's incredible stuff. So the link is below. So just a reminder, our masterclass series does not end here. Next week, in fact, we've got our next author that's coming up. And I encourage you once again to come along to that one. And our guest is going to be Rael Levitt. And Rael Levitt, many people know in the auction industry, and his whole story, he's just come out a book called It Takes a Tsunami. And he's going to be talking about the rise, the fall, and rise again of a South African property entrepreneur. So yeah, things don't always go well in business. As Grant said, go through different cycles. And Jaco, in terms of property, we've got to keep ahead of ourselves all the time. But it's been absolutely wonderful having you two gentlemen here today. I think it's been fantastic. So we'll see you all next Wednesday from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock for our webinar then. For those of you who want to, link up with both Jaco and Grant's courses, please, first buy their book, buy the book. So until then, next week, I say for you, successful investing. And remember, investment is also investing in yourself. So investing to spend time with Grant, who could put you onto the right track, and with Jaco, who can put you on the right track in terms of property investment. And may your real estate ventures and your life be prosperous and fulfilling. And until next Wednesday at 12 o'clock, this is Neale Petersen of Real Estate Investor signing out. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks very much for attending.
Bye, everyone.